Capital Hoops, continuing our series Beyond the X's and O's. Today we are with Team Takeover President and Coach of the 17U team, Keith Stevens. Keith, we appreciate you getting us in here today. I know it's a busy time for you guys, but we look forward to catching up with you and learning a little bit more about kind of your upbringing and how you've gotten to the point where you are today.
Not a problem. I've always been passionate about the game of basketball. I played at an early age. My mom was out pretty much working. That was kind of my outlet. Go out, play basketball till, it was time to go in the house. And, I was a solid player. Played high school basketball, won 2 state championships, went on to play junior college basketball.
Where did you play at?
At Forestville High School.
Okay.
Then played junior college basketball at Frederick Community College. Around that time, I got custody of my son at the end of my freshman year. I ended up leaving school, coming home to raise him. And just more so wanted to stay in tune with the game, so I started coaching, still playing pickup and stuff, but got more into coaching and trying to help other kids in my community, trying to make sure they don't make the same mistakes, going through the teenage parenting thing and dropping out of school one year, then going back and eventually finishing and things like that. So became a passion to say, hey, even if you're not playing basketball, you can still be effective in the game of basketball.
So how did getting into the whole AAU thing start? Did you coach? Where did you coach?
So I started coaching at Law Baptist High School.
Okay.
And then when I left there, I went to the Newport School. When I was at the Newport School, me and Curtis Malone got kind of cool. And
that was like the DeMar Johnson?
Yeah, that's when we had DeMar
days?
Johnson, Delonte, them. And then I started helping him with recruiting and doing some little stuff like that. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I kind of phased out of the AAU scene. Then got back into it when I think I probably got back into it when I had who was it? We got back into it probably with Chris Braswell. So one of my buddies had an AAU program. He was trying to get Braswell to play with him. Me and him met with the mom. She kind of asked. She was like, "Hey, who's going to be coaching?" I told her both of us would, and she was like, "Okay, as long as I know both of you guys are going to be around, I don't have a problem with him playing with you guys." We ended up supposedly being a 1-year thing and ended up being a consistent thing to today.
And what team was that?
That was Triple Threat.
That was Triple Threat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then when did Triple Threat become Takeover? Talk about that.
So what happened was, it was like me and the guy that ran Triple Threat was real close and still are. And it was just, I had an opportunity to have my own, like we were partners, but it was more so his because he did a great job of starting that program.
Okay.
And I wanted to kind of have my own identity, and I went on my own. And, that's when our first year, I think we had like Victor Oladipo, Jerry Grant, Brandon Young, guys like that, and we went on to the Nike circuit, and we kind of took off from there.
Tell us about how you get on to the Nike circuit, how you get on to whatever circuit it is. How does that work? How do they vet your program? I mean, for those who aren't, who don't understand that process, how does that work?
That thing is different, man, because, every shoe company is different. You got some shoe companies that will take a program for one player. You got some shoe companies that want an actual program / organization than just having a team. So it all depends on which shoe company it is. I think our thing was before we got the Nike contract, I was turned down probably 3 times. We would have conversations, we had meetings, and they'll say, all right, I think we're going to do it. Let us think about it. And they would come back and say, hey, Keith, we don't think this is in place yet, or we think you're still too tied into this thing right here, whatever it may be. And the Wisconsin, crossed me off the list, and then eventually, I think they just said they wanted to make a change in the area, and then we had the opportunity to get that.
So Nike has X amount of teams, right? What do you have to do to fulfill your role as president of Takeover or the president of any team to be attractable to Nike to get them on the circuit? What do they look for? Just a solid program?
I think it's overall a program, organization. I mean, I think a lot of people think it's just about the best players, but I think you have to show that you're doing things in the community, that, your kids are graduating, they get an opportunity to go to school free. You have to have not just a team, like to have feeder systems, of kids and stuff like that. That's what I think they look for, but, I think the shoe companies all have their own ways of doing things. If they feel like that can be their way to sign a kid later on, they'll give somebody a deal. You know what I mean? But
Right.
I can't. What I always say is, I always tell my guys, we can't worry about what they're doing with other people. We got to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to do to sustain who we are.
How many teams are under the Takeover umbrella?
We have about 28.
And that ages from
The raising girls ages 8-year-olds all the way to 17s.
And then there's some ages where you have like an A, B, A team,
Mm-hmm.
B team. How does that work?
It's just really just trying to kind of give as many kids as possible opportunity. You can't take every kid, but
Right.
if you can do 2 or 3 teams and you can put the right people in place to kind of help them develop, I think that's the key to it. I mean, you can never. It's just not realistic to please everyone.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you can help as many as possible.
So the key, I'm assuming one of the keys to your success is raising a kid in the Takeover umbrella and just hoping he develops and stays with Takeover from age, whether it be 8 or 12 or whatever, until he's a 17. But at some point there's turnover rate, right? There's kids who are going to leave Takeover or come into Takeover.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work? The turnover of do you have open tryouts for kids to come in
Every year is a tryout.
Okay.
Every year is a tryout, and I think it's not. I think when people see not just our program, but any program, I think when outsiders see a kid leave, they think they're leaving because something went wrong. A lot of times, as a kid, just need a different situation.
Mm-hmm.
There's no perfect situation. You know what I mean? And I always tell parents, like, you have to figure out what fits you and your child. Because that's what's most important. Like, if that kid isn't having fun, he don't need to be in that program, whether it's mine, the program down the street, or the program behind me. Like, if they're not having fun, it's not what they need to be doing.
So you're on the Nike circuit. Would you call yourself an employee of Nike?
No, I think we're more so, you can call it consultants,
Okay.
or I wouldn't even call it consultant. We're definitely not employees. I think the program is more so are nonprofits, and they're they kind of give back to the community through the programs, and in return, they might give a small amount of cash to give product. That's their way of, be it Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, whoever. That's their way of branding.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Having the kids wear it, and I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Tell me more about kind of your affiliation with Nike. I mean, you guys have so much gear, so much stuff. Does Nike kind of check to you as president of Team Takeover, or do they give you some kind of allowance to buy stuff? I'm just curious kind of how all the finances tie together as being on the Nike circuit.
From the financial standpoint, I think a lot of people think it's a lot of money and really isn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I know for us, we do a lot of fundraising.
Okay.
And it may not be necessarily fundraising as far as kids. It's not fundraising as far as kids getting on the corner with buckets raising money, but we do a lot of corporate sponsorships and things like that, of building relationships and finding, be it grant money or whatever, to kind of help sustain it. From a product standpoint, they give you product, but then they also give you the access from a purchase program to be able to purchase product at a good price. So I think there's a misconception that all of this stuff is just thrown to you and say go get the best players, and that's far from the truth.
So how many coaches would you say you have under the Takeover umbrella?
About 40.
Who pays these coaches? Where does that money come
It's
from?
volunteer. Like
Really?
we don't have any paid coaches.
Wow.
We don't have any paid coaches.
Okay. Let me switch gears a little bit. Talk to me about the landscape of AAU basketball. I mean, it has evolved into the monster it is today, where it seems like 10, 15 years ago it was high school basketball was king and AAU happened, but now it seems like AAU is king, and it kind of takes precedent over high school basketball. Talk about the journey of AAU basketball.
I really think high school and AAU basketball coincides. It goes side by side. I think the media and the people that's not of knowledge makes it the competition of the AAU side and the high school side. Mm-hmm. The reality is both of them serve a purpose. Okay, when you look at the high school side, you're talking about these high school coaches. Not only do they coach the kids, they got the kids for 9 or 10 months of the year, but they're monitoring grades. They're making sure kids are going to class. They're making sure guys are doing their clearinghouse stuff, and the parents, so they're doing a lot. Okay, then you take the AAU side, where it's a little different because we don't have to. Well, a lot of programs don't monitor the academic piece. I think we do a little bit of monitoring, but then we also offer some tutorial stuff. If a kid is struggling in class, we get them tutors. If a kid needs SAT prep, we provide it. But at the same time, when I always tell my kids, like, hey, that school is contributing to your education, okay? So if that's the case, high school has to supersede the AAU side. Just, if nothing else, for the education, because that's the most important thing. Like, if I'm sitting there telling the kid, okay, Elizabeth Seton is giving you $6,000 in grant money, scholarship money, whatever you want to call it, to go to their school, you can't ask that kid to miss their summer league game or whatever without having an agreement with the coach to say go to an AAU tournament. Because they make an investment in something that's bigger than this basketball and their education. Right. So I think it's just not, the communication piece is not where it needs to be from the high school and AAU coaches for most people. Like for us, we're fortunate to know we go to Memorial Day, and after Memorial Day, we don't touch the kids the whole month of June. And the reason being, we know that's in this area, that's when summer league is really taking off. So my thing is, hey, your focus need to be on Coach Turner. Your focus need to be on, Kevin Jones, whoever your high school coach is. They need to have your ear right now. It shouldn't be you're trying to find a balance between the two of us. You need to focus on that because it's their time right now.
Recruiting is such an integral aspect of all levels of basketball. I'm really, really curious to get kind of your insight on how you help kids go from middle school to high school, how you help kids go from high school to college. I know you're a pretty influential man in basketball circles in this area, and I'm just curious to get your insight on how that works and how you help these kids out, what relationships you have with high school coaches, because it seems like you have good relationships with with a lot of high school coaches, and how that plays a fact.
I think a lot of it is just fit. What I mean? I think a lot of times people get caught up in, because you play for Takeover, you have to go to the Martha Gonzaga or Paul VI. But nobody never realized when the year when St. John's was really good, the bulk of that team played for Takeover. Trey Campbell, James Palmer, and all those guys. So for me and my program, and the guys that work with me, we always say we got to find the right fit for that kid and that family. And sometimes that fit might not even be basketball. It might be, hey, we know this kid got some academic needs that's needed. Gonzaga got a program that they need to be in, or St. John's has some SAT stuff that's really good, and we've seen the success in the numbers where we need to get them into that. So if you're really doing it for the kids, it can't be about how do I benefit or how do I hold on, or how do I show that I got the strong goal. We got to be, where can I put that kid that's going to be the best situation for that kid. And that's why our kids, like we have kids at all the schools. We have kids at Riken, St. John's, Paul VI, DeMatha, Gonzaga. Is not one program where every kid goes to.
How about helping kids get from high school to college? What role do you play in that decision, and just give me your insight on that.
I always tell parents and the kids, I say, hey, use me for the advice. At the end of the day, I always tell college coaches, they always say, well, Keith, I know you're going to have a major influence on what he does. No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the pros and cons of the situation. Hey, this is what we've known this university to be capable of doing or not capable of doing. Here's what they're strong at, here's what they're weak at. And then you and your family have to sit down and figure out what's the best situation. Okay, because one thing I always say is like, I'm not going to tell you where to go, because if it don't work out, I don't need to call coming back, Coach Keefe, you told me to go to University of Minnesota and it didn't work out. You told me to go to Utah and it didn't work out. My job is to give you the pros and cons. It's up to you and your family to figure out what's the best situation for our family. Because at the end of the day, like I tell kids, like, not only do I not have to be there, but mom and dad don't have to be there also. You got to be there. So that kid has to be comfortable where he's going.
How important are connections you have with possibly former takeover coaches or people that you've known well who are now at some of these schools?
I mean, I think it helps because I can kind of tell you who they are. I've had kids that wanted to go play for takeover coaches, and I told their families like that might not be the right situation, and that could be because that coach might not, personalities might not mesh, or or whatever it may be. They might not have the major you were really looking for. They might not be as serious about the academic piece as that family is. So you got to kind of, obviously you got to be upfront. There's times when coaches will say, well, is this kid good enough? And I'll say, he's good enough, but I don't know if he's going to fit what you guys are looking for personality-wise. You know what I mean? Like if you look at Duke, Duke likes the rah-rah type guys. That doesn't necessarily mean because you're a good player you should go to Duke. It has to fit both sides because they're for to work for both sides. We've had a kid go to Duke, and from a basketball side, he was good enough, but from a personality standpoint, it didn't mesh with the Duke personality and the persona was. And that's not a bad thing on either one. Right. It just wasn't the right fit. But that kid the good thing was that kid made the decision. Coach Keith didn't make it. You know what I mean? So when that kid decided to go to the next phase, he called and said, hey, where can I go to be comfortable at? We was able to help him find the right place. So.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you coexist with other AAU programs in the area? I know there's a lot of strong personalities in the AAU world, and there's a lot of programs these days, and I'm curious what your relationship is with some of these other coaches and, just how you guys coexist.
I know for me, I don't think I have a problem with no program. I talk to all of them. You know what I mean? And I'm pretty upfront. Like if a kid calls and say they want to come over, I say you need to call them and let them know, because I'm going to let them know that you reached out to try to do something different. Anybody that's for kids, I'm for them. You know what I mean? So I can't coach every kid. I can't finance every trip for every kid. So the more programs we have that's doing it the right way and doing the right things, like I'm for them. You know what I mean? Like we'll use Markel folks, who I would have loved to coach, but at the same time, Under Armour was pursuing the Blue Devils at the time to bring them over. And Keith and Markel's mom we all met, and they had considered letting them come over if it didn't go through. But at the end of the day, I knew Keith and the Blue Devils would be a good fit for some, other kids that we couldn't take. So it wasn't a thing where you wanted to see them not get it. I felt like it was going to be a benefit for our community to have another strong program, and it's like, how can you sit there and speak negative, be it New World, Premier, Metro Bulls, whoever it may be, if they're doing right by the kids and helping these kids get opportunities. You can't look at it that way, because there's not one of us that can coach all the best players. It's just not realistic. You got to have other outlets for those guys. Yeah. Speaking of coaches, tell us a little bit about some of the former takeover coaches who have gone on to the college ranks and who, we hear a lot of names of these guys. Yeah, we got a good bit. We have in the NBA level, we have Jeff Peterson, who played for us, who's assistant GM for the Atlanta Hawks. Jay Larinaga, who's the associate coach for the Boston Celtics. And then at the college level, Division I, we have Kenny Johnson, associate coach at Louisville. Adrian Autry, associate coach at Syracuse. Jamil Jones, assistant coach at Wake Forest. Tony Skinn at Louisiana Tech. Brandon McDonald at Towson. Matt Henry at St. Peter's. I'm probably forgetting a bunch. I think we got like 13 guys coaching. James Wilheim, he's a head coach at Winston-Salem State. So we have more than our fair share of guys out there. Dwayne Anderson at Penn State. So we've been fortunate to have quality coaches come through the program and be able to go on to the next level and be successful. How do you help facilitate getting your coaches to the next level? Is that something that you're hands on? A lot of it is, man. A lot of it starts right here when you're preparing them. Telling them, when a college coach calls me, what attracts me to that university? Like, what are they saying that can, pique my interest? Kind of get them to understand what is it like to go build relationships with families and making that mom and dad feel like it's okay to let their kid go under their tree to learn. So a lot of it's just the mentorship piece and kind of trying to give them avenues to go and explore, to try to figure out what can we do to get to the next level. Then the next piece where I come in is more so just making sure if I got a meeting with somebody, taking you to that meeting for people who can see that you play a part in this program and that you can be an asset to them long term if they decide to bring you onto their staff. But it's all, and all this thing is all relationships. It all boils down to relationships, and for us is people realize the guys that we have had to come out this program have been successful. It's not like guys leave this program, go coach, and then they disappear. These guys have been successful, and that's why you got to associate coaches at multiple levels and things like that.
Let's talk a little bit more about basketball. Tell me about how you guys are doing at the different age levels this year. I know Peace Jam is coming up next week. Just tell me about where Takeover basketball is today.
I think it's good. I think we have a great group of young kids coming up, which is always good because you don't have to go out and recruit as much. I always tell our guys, ideally, when the kids get to 17s, if we can only have to bring 1, maybe 2 players in, that means we've done our job. And if from 8th grade to 12th grade, if the goal is always, if you can get 10 kids, that's great. But usually I always tell them, like, let's try to get 6 to 8 kids to make it all the way through. Because if that happens, I mean, we're doing our job from a development standpoint, and the schools that they're playing with are doing their job also to keep the kids getting better. So I think we're in a good place. I think for the older kids right now, we finished the 17U finish on like an 8-1 record going into Peace Jam. So we're playing good basketball, but all that changes in a couple of weeks.
I'm curious to get some of your best memories as not just the president of Takeover, but the coach of the 17s. I know you guys won Peace Jam. I forget how long ago that was, but just give me some of the best memories. Buzzer beaters, tournament. I mean, anything that comes to mind. Great guys who are in the NBA now who maybe you played against.
And I'll say, like, I don't have any, like, that I hold on to, but I can go over times, and it's more so the times you spend with those kids and watching them grow. You know what I mean? Like, when you watch a kid like Victor Oladipo, who was a 4-man in high school, for not only for the math, but for us also, transitioning to a guard and being in the dunk contest, that's great. You know what I mean? Or you watching, one of the funny things, we had a big kid, George Papaguinness, that played with us, and I remember he was like, I got to go home and then I'm coming back for Peace Jam, and I'm looking at the coach, I'm letting y'all know, he gets on that plane to go home, he ain't coming back. Goes home, he don't come back. 2 years later, he's a lottery pick. So I don't think it's much fond memories, but there's a lot of memories of unique situations and watching kids grow that kind of keeps you wanting to do this. You know what I mean? That finished product. Watching, like, we had a kid, Tim Higgins, that played, and his dad called me like a year ago. I was like, "Hey, Tim's not playing basketball anymore." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "He wants to be president of the university at MIT." So those are things that you watch kids as they grow, and guys that you may thought was going to be really, really good don't become as good or not as engaged in basketball as they were. And then guys that you thought was just going to be okay end up becoming really, really good. So that's probably...
Tell me about some of the top program players that you've had over the years, kids who you've brought up from young ages to the 17s. Who are some of those guys that come to mind?
Well, I'd say Grant brothers, Jeremy and Jaren, Victor, Mike Benajay, all those 4 guys all played with us from 9th grade on up. Then younger guys like Chris Likes and Aaron played in middle school. Aaron Thompson, Jelani Williams, Kyrie Walker. So you see, the good thing is a lot of those kids have been around for a long time. Then you get some kids like a Josh Hart that comes as a sophomore. So it kind of mixes. You got guys like Phil Booth, who was there since, 9th grade, and then you watch him go on and have 21 points in the NCAA tournament championship game. So we've been fortunate to have some good players, but I don't think we've had a lot of quote-unquote 5-star players. I think it was a lot of guys that wanted to work, and they kept working, and they got better, and they even got better, kept getting better when they got to college, and it kind of helped them to be who they are.
Give me a list of current NBA players who played for Takeover at some point.
Ty Lawson, Victor Oladipo, Eric Green, Jeremy Grant, Michael Benajay, George Papaguinness, and I want to say it's one more. Who am I missing? Josh Hart.
You've built an amazing program here at Takeover, but I'm curious, what would happen if you got offered a job in an NBA front office? What would happen if a college came knocking on the door and wanted you to be the associate head coach at a top 25 school? I mean, talk to me. I'm sure you've had other opportunities to do things. I'm curious where you are on that topic.
It's kind of like I said earlier in the interview, like when you talk about the kids got to be happy where they are. Whatever I do, I got to be happy. Like I don't, like this is refreshing for me because I'm doing what I love to do. So it's not when I come to office every day, I'm not working. Like I'm doing what I love to do. And I enjoy it. You know what I mean? I enjoy knowing that I'm impactful and helping 100 and whatever many kids has been to go to college free. I mean, I enjoy hearing about the kids that graduated that we thought was going to struggle when they get to college. So if it would have to be a real unique situation, and it would have to be one that would be perfect. Like I can just slide right in and it doesn't affect the guys that work for me, because those guys are super important, and then my family will have to be happy with it, but who knows?
Talk to me about the people who are super important to you, all the coaches you have here. I know you have a lot of coaches, and I see you, everyone sees you at a lot of basketball games, and it seems like you guys have a lot of chemistry and are really a tight bond. Talk about that.
I mean, like when we started, we always talked about family, and we tried to instill those same values in the kids. So in order to instill those things, we have to show that we have that tight knit. So you're talking about like guys like my right hand and Stanley Childs, you know, that's not working here full time in the office, but that's who I go to, and that's who, before any decision is made, that's who was discussed with. Then you have, you know, Doug Martin, who pretty much is the athletic director of the program, and who keeps a lot of stuff off my plate, you know, because he does a great job of catching it before it get to my desk and kind of handling it, and he knows when to just say, hey, let me take it to Coach Nunu, and then let's see if we need to take the Keith, or do we need to just handle it. So we got great guys, and you got, you know, the grassroots guys like Kyle Williams and Kari Pierce, who handles all the younger age groups, and they kind of bring everything up to Doug and Nunu to kind of figure it out. Then you got Coach Vess, who's handles all the bulk of the recruiting, and then you got Brendan.
Who's that?
Morello Vess.
Okay.
And then you got Brendan Strong, who's great with all the kids. Like they know him, he communicates with them. Things that they might not necessarily feel comfortable talking to us about because we're a little older, they talk to him, and he knows how to really get into them and make them understand. So, you know, Ray Brewer, who's the energy guy, but also the kids know he was a hell of a player. You know, a lot of things that they want to do, he's already done, and then he's always going to be upfront with them on what it is. So we got great guys, and you know, I can go down a list of, you know, Xavier Joyner, who won national championships at JUCO, that does a great job, and Blair Mills, who was a former high school coach, Lamar Butler, who played in the Final Four. So we got great guys, and you know, and that's what it really is about. You got to have great guys, and great guys that want to be around each other. You know what I mean? And it's not like we know where the turnover is going to come in. You know what I mean? We know who wants college jobs, so it's not like everybody here is trying to get out to get a college job. We know, okay, the guys that's going to be here. We know these are the guys that's going to be here, and this is what I can put on your plate because I know you're not going nowhere. But we also know these are guys that's probably not going to be here that long, so we have to prepare them when they get ready to leave, and prepare somebody else to be able to step in that place to make sure we don't miss a beat.
What is Separation Sports?
So Separation Sports is a business that's formed, and it's basically an event business. Okay. So we do everything from high school tournaments, AAU tournaments, run NBA players camps, run our own camps. We just run a lot of sporting events. You know, we've done celebrity weekends, things like that. So that's the foundation to be able to make money and make a living. Like, you don't really make money off of running a basketball program. You have to, my thing was to be creative. This is what I really want to do, to be creative enough to create some properties that we own to kind of build on and be able to make an income for myself and a couple of the guys that work full time.
Okay. Last thing I want to do, a question that I've asked every coach during this series. I'm curious to get your answer. If there's a pickup basketball game today with all the coaches in the area, I guess we'll do AAU and high school, who would your first pick be?
First pick.
As a player, this is the play.
Right now,
Right now.
good thing. I'm picking Lamar Butler.
Well, Keith, we really appreciate the hospitality, letting us come in and catching up a little bit. The last thing I want to do is just give you the floor. If there's anything you want to talk about, you feel strongly about, here's a platform to address the DMV basketball community.
I think it's not anything particular. One thing I will say is we have to, as a community, have to do a better job of respecting what these coaches do. Be it the high school coaches, the AAU coaches. I think a lot of times it's easy to be that Monday morning quarterback and sit in the stands and tell your kids or whoever, this coach doesn't do this well, this coach doesn't do that well, as opposed to a lot of us, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. You know, your parents tell kids all the time, hey, you should have played more because you could have got 25, but 25 points might not have been needed that night. That coach probably was looking for somebody to stop that guy over there that was getting the 30. You know, but you have to kind of have an open look at it. You know, we can't prejudge. You know, and anybody that's for the kids, you should be for them. You know, that's what this thing really is about. You know, the kids are playing basketball because they got goals, and we're trying to all help them. And if somebody's trying to help your kid, it's not a lot of money being made, or you know, these high school coaches aren't getting paid a lot. You know, to take the time out to be with your kids, and I think that has to be valued more. And I think if we can do anything, is stop being negative about what everybody's doing and be more positive. And if we see something that can be corrected, you know, in a respectful way, bring it to that person's attention. I think it will make this basketball community a healthier community.
All right, Keith. Well said. We appreciate the time. It's been great catching up, and best of luck in Peace Jam.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.